No Nose Knows. Written by Irrespective. Chapter 25. Date Night. Part 2. Then the main course arrived, and Big Bean finally figured out what the difference between upscale and gourmet was. Upscale, it appeared, was less fancy but more filling. One would obviously use the finest ingredients at the peak of freshness, but at the end of the meal, you're left feeling satisfied. Gourmet was a fancier meal, and the fancier the meal, the less actual food, until Bean could imagine an empty plate being served as the pinnacle of high dining. Of course, some chef would have to top that with a plate that somehow had a negative amount of food on it, which might actually be a unicorn spell, now that he was thinking of it. That certainly would be better than what he had just been served. Voila! Twice Baked grandly proclaimed. We are sure you will be delighted by this most exquisite dish. We shall return right away with more water. The other royals eagerly began eating, but Bean poked his with his fork and tried to figure out how he could sniff it without causing a scene, or accidentally inhaling the entire thing.
Is there something wrong with your meal, my love?
Celestia gently asked. Oh, no. I was just expecting something more than a can of cat food on a decorative plate. This sprig of parsley's a nice touch, though.
This actually appears to be a rather generous helping,
Luna remarked. Right. Bean groaned. Well, it does look good. How does it taste?
It is acceptable,
Luna shrugged. Bean took a small bite. It wasn't bad, that was true. A bit less on the sesame would help, and a bit more clover perhaps, but overall not bad at all.
Does it meet your standards?
Celestia asked. Yeah, it'll do. She gave him a quick wink.
That is good to hear. Now, would you like some diplomacy lessons while we're here?
Dinner quite rapidly became very interesting. Bean nodded once, and Celestia let out a high, tinkling laugh.
You are just too much, my love,
she pronounced.
So, the first thing I have to show you is how to hold a conversation within a conversation.
I suspect the occasional laugh is part of that.
Most assuredly. When you do this, it is important to make it sound like you are still holding a normal conversation, by sprinkling in more common terms and phrases, and especially at the beginning and the end of a statement. The bits and pieces that your conversation that float away from you become random and meaningless. Once you become a bit more proficient, we can use the double entendre to share all sorts of wonderful secrets.
Fair enough. My talkifying is common enough, so all I have to do is open my mouth and let sounds fall out.
Talkifying?
Luna repeated with a laughing scoff.
What kind of world have you created, sister, where a pony gets away with such a blatant assault on the Equish language? My dear sister, there are so many words that have entered our vocabulary thanks to those blatant assaults. I predict that within 20 years we will all be using talkifying in our everyday conversations. If that happens, I'll send myself back to the moon.
Both Bean and Celestia shared a giggle, and then Celestia continued her lesson.
Now, my precious, let us try this. Pick something in this room and describe it to me while still following the instructions I gave you. Let's see how marvelous you are.
Let me see. Let me begin with the chandelier. A rather impressive crystal thing. I want to say infused, but it's not that.
What is it then?
Wait. Bean gave his wife a knowing glare. This has nothing to do with diplomacy. I mentioned I was having a problem describing the alternate world in my book. This is just a way to get me to practice describing things.
It is both,
she replied with a smirk.
The ability to describe, compare, and contrast will prove invaluable in the future. The ability to mask what you are saying will allow us to flirt without any pony knowing.
Unless we are with our present company. Guards are selectively deaf, dumb, and blind, Channing chimed. I'll keep my flirting over here if you keep yours over there. Deal, Bean announced. Sally, do you like Schmoopy Doopy better than Sweetie Weetie? Luna groaned as the two married couples began booping and nuzzling their respective partner.
I suppose this is the penalty I pay for marrying young,
she she muttered, but with a coy glance to a nearby waiter, who looked startled and pulled at his necktie in obvious concern. Celestia suppressed a chuckle when yet another pony quickly trotted up and got in line to meet the suddenly famous Baked Bean. Ever since they had touched down in Saddle Park, ponies had been flocking to both him and to Luna, and that pleased her to no end. Bean deserved the attention, in her estimation, and the more he got out of among their little ponies, the more he would be accepted and loved. Most ponies who spoke with him were so astonished by the circumstances that had put him where he was that they just had to ask if it was all true. Bean chuckled each time and confirmed that it was, and then he would patiently answer the dozen or so questions that came after that. Her husband was doing well, and at this rate, he would soon be as beloved as her dear sister was. That was what made Celestia the happiest. For over 1,000 years she had been alone in the spotlight, but she was more than happy to let those whom she loved be the focus of the country's praise and adoration for a change. It was bringing flavor and zest into her life, and it made it easier to remember just how magical friendship was. She had been lonely for long enough.
Excuse me, princess, but I have something for you from the prince. What? Wisteria? What is... Oh!
Wisteria was holding a sizable banquet of red roses in her magic, and she gently transferred them to the princess with a smile.
He was really insistent they be red. Something about tasting the best,
She remarked.
Oh, they're lovely.
Celestia dipped her nose into them and inhaled the sweet aroma.
I don't remember the last time a pony gave me flowers with no political favors attached to them. I certainly don't remember any pony doing that,
Wisteria agreed. Celestia giggled a bit and positioned the banquet in front of her, so that the next time Bean glanced over he would see her eyes over the top of them. She began staring at him with a sultry and inviting look, hoping that he would feel her stare and look over towards her. It didn't take long. Bean was telling a gray unicorn about his celestial crystal, and when he glanced over at her as part of the story, she quickly batted her eyelashes at him and tilted her head teasingly. Bean had some red flare on his cheeks, but he managed to keep his composure and continue on with the conversation. The next time he glanced, Saucy softly bit one of the blooms off and slowly pulled it into her mouth with her lips. This he chuckled at, and he shook his head slightly before focusing back on the ponies before him. With the next glance, Celestia made a great show of licking her lips while staring right at him. This made his cheeks nearly as red as the roses, and he did stammer a bit before recovering and forcing his eyes forward. And then Celestia noticed one of the guards moving towards Luna with a large bouquet of flowers.
Wisteria? Who got those flowers for Lulu?
She asked, as she gently plucked one full rose and placed it behind her left ear.
Prince Bean did. It took a bit longer to find those since they're night lilies. Night lilies? Yeah, he thought she would be more appreciative of them. Oh, I hope so,
She replied.
Those were the flowers she and Star Trek always shared. It might bring up some memories she doesn't want to recall.
Both Celestia and Wisteria watched in hopeful concern as the guard tapped Luna on the shoulder and then presented the arrangement. There was a gasp from Luna, a tear escaped, but then a warm smile came as she accepted and buried her nose in the banquet as if she was traveling back in time by the way of the scent. And when Bean glanced over towards her, Celestia felt warm and tingly as she watched Luna mouth thank you to him with one night lily petal dangling from her bottom lip.
My dear Bean, you are simply amazing,
Sister remarked to herself with a chuckle as Luna took a lily and placed it beside her own left ear. She then met Celestia's gaze, gave her a nod of solid satisfaction, and turned her attention to another pony who had come to visit her. And I'm a singing pony. Luna tried to hide her smile behind a false facade of minor grumpiness as Bean and Celestia's serious expressions devolved into helpless giggles. The trip home had been insufferable, with them belting out all the songs from the play at full volume for the entire flight back home. Of course, Shiny and Cadence had done the same, so she was stuck with off-key singing no matter what. Even so, she would not trade their flat notes for the finest choir in all of Equestria.
Oh, my dear Bean, we simply must do this again.
Celestia laughed, an expression of joy that Luna relished beyond all things in the world.
This was fun, and that was the most fantastical musical. I am sure I'll be singing Hi Hitty Hey for the next week.
Then again, All good things had their limits, and there was only so much off-key joy that Luna could stand.
It has been a delightful evening, but I must tend to my duties now if you'll excuse me. Oh,
Saucy replied sadly, and both she and Bean pouted.
well, good night then, sister. Good evening.
Luna then teleported away, but not to her quarters. She did fully intend to attend to the dreams of her little ponies, but first she needed something to eat. She wasn't herself when she was hungry, and she doubted that there was a gourmet meal in the whole of Equestria that would ever satisfy her. A quick raid of the pantry yielded a slice of chocolate cake, and Luna tried to eat the first delectable treat with as much speed but as little sound as possible. The second slice disappeared within seconds and without a care for the noisy grunting she emitted as she ate, but she forced herself to slow down on the third slice so as to properly savor it.
And yet every pony thinks Sally is the cake fanatic,
Luna thought with a snicker. Her magic then pulled the night lily from her ear, and she smiled deeply as she looked it over. Bean probably had no idea why Luna loved them so. They had probably picked them because they had the word night in their name. But the flood of warm memories that had swept over her when they had been presented had helped her to feel not so alone, not quite so removed from her own beloved. In fact, she was quite pleased that Bean was able to help her remember him so often. It didn't hurt so much when she did. A rattling noise at the door broke her thoughts up, and she stepped back into the shadows to avoid detection. Who could possibly be coming into the kitchen so late?
Shh,
Saucy's voice drifted in.
I thought I heard something.
Just don't use your nose to go looking for the source, Bean's voice followed.
Very funny. All right, I think the coast is clear. What can you make that's quick?
I could probably throw a salad together, real quick like. Just a simple one.
That sounds good. Those roses were delicious, but it just wasn't enough. I think. Hungry, sister?
Both Bean and Saucy yelped in alarm, and Luna simply laughed as they recovered and glared at her.
I thought you said you were going to the dream realm,
Saucy said with a huff.
I said I was attending my duties. Eating is one of them.
Bean rubbed one hoof against the opposite arm in embarrassment. Guess I didn't pick the restaurant so well, huh?
Do not be discouraged,
Luna admonished Bean with a kind smile.
It is difficult to find a restaurant anywhere that will offer more than what we received. I think our subjects worry more about our weights than we do.
Well, next time I'll just take you home then. My parents won't hold back.
I would like to visit them sometime.
Luna smiled a bit more.
Now, did you mention a salad? And not the kind of salad we was served at that place. One of your salads.
Bean beamed at the princess. I'll have a nice beet salad with candied macadamia nuts whipped up with 2 shakes of my tail.
Sally, is the food at Bean's restaurant any good?
Luna asked while Bean got to work, and her sister smiled warmly.
We didn't get to eat an actual meal when we were there, but I assure you that you would not be leaving hungry based on what I saw them making. But he wants to be a writer.
Luna shook her head.
I'm afraid I still don't quite understand why. Destiny is a fickle thing, Lulu. Some ponies find their purpose rather quickly. Others spend a lifetime searching and never find it. If I may be a bit prideful for a moment, I personally think it is his desire to be a writer was simply the means he needed to find his true destiny. Oh, very modest, miss. I am the end of your searching.
Luna scoffed with a laugh.
I suppose you could be right. He would not have been found if he had not been good at running a restaurant. I suppose that is plays into your theory that cutie marks are simply suggestions too.
Saucy nodded.
Perhaps it does. Well, for the record, I am most pleased you have him, and that he has you. He has proven himself to be a most devoted stallion, and I feel that he will be for you what Star Trek was for me. I may still tease and torment him on occasion, but I believe I can accept him now. You have accidentally done well for yourself. Sometimes that's the best way to go,
Sister replied with a laugh. A thud from the far end of the kitchen caught the sisters' attention, and both grew curious as the sounds of a pony muttering in frustration leaked through the open doorway.
Shiny, they'll hear you.
Cadence hissed.
Quiet.
How can they hear me? They're at the other end of the... Both of them froze as they rounded the corner and found both aunts staring at them with amusement. Hi? Shining tried with a cheesy grin.
Good evening.
They replied.
What brings you here during this most glorious hour of my night?
I admit I may not have picked a very good restaurant, Shining Armor said sheepishly. Katie and I are still hungry.
Bean!
Sister shifted back to the kitchen.
Double up that salad and stuff it!
Stuff a tree and double it, he shouted back. God, that's so cute. I absolutely love this slow burn relationship with Selly and just how teasing she is. And Luna just being, I wouldn't say a wingmare, but being a very supportive person, her sister basically. Being very supportive, and it's just so adorable. I love it. God, I love No Nose Nose. What a good series so far. What else I love are my wonderful Patreons. Thank you, Squall, Windfeather, Rainflicker, Starlight Blaze, Dreamless Portal, and Redeemer of Dark. Chase LeMaster, Sword Brother, and Mordred, DanishDash, Night in Game, DJMX 2000, Endless, Solus, RD Bryant, Captain BlueShadow, Nocturne, HKH4 AK Texture, The Animated Ghost, and Canned Panzer. And of course a large thank you to my Titan tiers, Dark Guardian, Maverick, and Silent Titan. I appreciate your guys' support so much and it means a ton to me. That aside, however, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.